So what happened with the Yellow Dot thing then was we're starting to get, popular place, little party every weekend, and it's getting a little bit risky with what was going on there and everything. Actually, one of the local PD guys told us at one point, he said, "Hey, you guys ought to be living up in the county or something. You guys are you're gonna get harassed, you're gonna get busted, something's gonna happen to you guys down there. You really need to think about, finding yourself someplace up in the hills up there in the county area or something,
So that's when you moved to Redwood Estates?
So we moved to Redwood Estates. Nick Bowen and I went up there posing as college students and rented a place. Bill and Mary Ellen went up as a couple and they rented the other side of the place. And once we secured the leases and everything, then all of a sudden, boom, we had, 10, 15 people living there. Moved in all of our band equipment and the whole bit, and we had this rocking house there in Redwood Estates. And of course, Redwood Estates is right up just below the summit there, going up over Highway 17. You do the little spin off and then up a few side roads, and you're at this place called Redwood Estates. And but it was there that we found out when we were there, and I think we may have played there a couple of times before we moved up that way. But there's this little place up there called the Chateau Liberté. And it was Chateau Liberté, I think used to be like a family camp. I mean, you drove down this road down through all the redwoods and everything else. They had little cabins on the property, had a little lodge there, swimming pool and all this kind of stuff. So I think at one time it was kind of like a family camp thing or something, and evolved into various different things over the years. But at the time we started going up there and playing, at the lodge there, they had a bar. They had a small, area there with tables and stuff, and not much of a dance floor there, but mostly tables and stuff, and then a stage and everything. And then around the outside quarter, they had all these pool tables and stuff. Of course, it was a big hangout for the Hells Angels at the time too. They'd go up there. A lot of times you would go up there, and the Hells Angels might be there having a little party as well. And but it was one of the places we started kind of frequenting and playing, and we got more and more gigs up there. And then, of course, we weren't very far from there, so a lot of times the parties would start there and then end up back over at our house over on up in Redwood Estates and everything. We eventually, so once we moved up to there, we got to the point to where we were a little bit more secure being away from the city. Oh, I forgot to mention, so the day that Nick Bowen and I were up there at Redwood Estates securing the lease, when we came back down to the house we were trying to get the thing going as quickly as we can. We got back down to the house and the whole place was a shambles. Everybody was gone. It turned out that Bill, Mary Ellen, a bunch of the people that lived there there was a big raid. They came in, they thought they had gotten a tip. They actually had an undercover cop there at our party the weekend before who was sitting there in the dining room. He had a wig on and everything, nobody knew. And we were oblivious. But anyway, they thought there's got to be all kinds of drugs here. Let's do this big raid. Well, long story short, it all ended up into nothing in the long and short of it. But people got arrested. They tore the place apart. It was just a total mess. When Nick and I got there, we gathered up a couple of other people. I mean, we were throwing people's stuff that was strewed out on the street just about, throwing it all into drawers and boxes and everything else, and just loading it up on Nick's flatbed truck. Drove it up to Redwood Estates, and everybody tried to sort it out within the following weeks and whatever. So we barely made it out of Sunnyvale alive, but luckily everybody, nobody ended up with any serious charges or anything that didn't eventually just kind of go away. So we were fortunate. We had Lady Luck on our side a lot through those years, because some of the crazy stuff we used to do and the parties we used to have and everything, but we were able to kind of dodge the bullet from anything real serious happened to anybody along the way. But then when we moved up to Redwood Estates, that was a great time. We had a lot of progress on our career going, And we were still known as Moe's at that point. We started adding a few extra things. One of the things at this point, Frankie had now, I think, was out of high school, and he moved in with the band. And of course, he had a girlfriend, Lisa. And so now we had Lisa and Mary Ellen, so we started doing some things with Lisa and Mary Ellen. They were kind of like the backup singer of part of the group. We had another guy that hung out with us, a guitar player by the name of Mike Bell. And he was a fun, crazy guy, but he played guitar with us on a few tunes and do a few of the backup singing things and stuff. So we had this long. The band was growing a little bit, some other things. We still had kind of the core unit there between Frank, myself, and Carl and Bill Woody. But then we started adding a few extra people and everything along with it. And we started growing musically and doing some fun things and all. But we did play the Chateau an awful lot. Occasionally we did some things where, what was kind of interesting is I can remember the one thing we did start to run into a little bit with the name Moe's was, of course, there's a great jazz player by the name of Mose Allison, right? So every once in a while they would bill him on some ticket as Moe's, or sometimes they'd say Mose Allison, sometimes they'd just say Moe's. Well, I can remember one time we were playing up at the Chateau Liberté and we were, billed as Moe's. And some guy came up to us after the first set when we took our break and he says, "Man, you guys are really cool." He said, "But I was expecting Mose Allison." He says, "But you guys just blew my mind." And so occasionally we'd start to run into that a little bit with that name. It had a, because every once in a while we run into a little conflict where people thinking they're booking Mose Allison. It was really some, crazy rock group called Moe's.
Now, was it true that Moe's had warmed up for the Doobie Brothers before they were?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, a couple situations. We had some interesting times up there at the Chateau Liberté because sometimes we get some pretty good. They'd get some pretty good groups up there. And the Doobie Brothers at the same time was down. They were based down in San Jose and whatnot, and they knew a lot of the same people and everything else, and they were coming up. The big difference between them and us was, they had just gotten a recording contract. I think it was with Warner Brothers or whatever, and just came out with, listening to music and all this kind of stuff, and so they were up and coming. They had a record behind them now, deal and all that stuff behind them. But we played a couple of different things. I think a couple of times as Moe's, and then later as TimberCreek. I think we did some as well. And then eventually we did some stuff with, there was other people that, like one time we played up, I know we played for sure. I was trying to find the posters on it here a while back, but I know they did some of the side groups and stuff like Jefferson Airplane, Yorma and Jack had this side thing called Hot Tuna. And so Hot Tuna would play up there sometimes, and we played warm up to them a couple of times as well. And a few, there's some other really good acts that would come through there from time to time. There are some local crazies that were up there too, like, gosh, what was his name? It just flashed by me for a second, but, a couple of the people, or at least one of the guys that used to be with Moby Grape. I don't know if you remember Moby Grape. Yeah. Skip Spencer, I think it was.
Skip Spencer.
Yeah, and he was up there, and he had a, every once in a while he'd get a royalty check and just go bonkers for a few weeks or whatever, that kind of stuff. But I think one of the other neat things about that place up there too was we got a long-lasting relationship and friendship with a guy by the name of Captain Wizzo, and he did the light show stuff up there, and we started building some new relationships and friendships with a lot of different people. But I think he was a pretty special guy. I can remember one night after the gig, Carl Holland and I, and I think it was just Carl and I and Captain Wizzo. He had a little cabin there on the property, and I remember sitting there until the sun came up, and we polished off a bottle of Rebel Yell, was the whiskey that he had.